At the wedding reception table, she introduced me as just a friend. I looked her in the eye, smiled, and said 4 words that changed everything. What happened in the next 4 minutes left everyone speechless. But that was only the beginning. Some mistakes cost you everything. My name's Kenneth Pierce. Friend call me Ken. I'm 45 years old, and until recently, I managed a manufacturing plant in Toledo, Ohio. Good job, profit-sharing deal that set me up nicely. I had a wife, Felicity, who ran an online craft business selling handmade stuff on Etsy. We'd been together 6 years, married for 4. She had 2 kids from a previous relationship, Connor, 14, and Emma, 11. I had my own son, Jake, 16, living with my ex-wife Caroline in Columbus. The thing about second marriages is you go in thinking you've learned from your mistakes. You're older, wiser, more careful. You watch for red flags. You communicate. You build together. Felicity and I bought a house in Maumee, nothing fancy but solid. 3 bedrooms, decent yard, close to good schools for her kids. I helped her launch that Etsy store, spotted her $50 grand to buy the equipment, the embroidery machines, the bulk materials. She said it was a loan. I said it was an investment in our future. No paperwork, just trust. Saturday, September 16th. Her cousin's wedding at some boutique vineyard 2 hours south, near Sandusky. Beautiful place, all rolling hills and late summer sun. That golden light photographers go crazy for. Felicity spent the morning getting ready, hair appointment, makeup, the whole production. I ironed my navy suit, polished my shoes, played the part. We drove down together in her Honda, talking about nothing important. The weather, the playlist. Whether Connor needed new cleats for soccer. She seemed fine, happy even. Laughed at my jokes, touched my arm when I made a turn. No tension, no distance. Just us, heading to a family event like a regular couple. We pulled into the gravel lot around 3:30. The ceremony wasn't until 4, but Felicity wanted to help her cousin with some last-minute details. I grabbed the gift from the back seat, a silver picture frame we'd picked out together, and we walked toward the main building. Stone archways, ivy climbing the walls, white chairs arranged in perfect rows near a gazebo. The kind of place that charges extra just for existing. That's when I saw the reception table near the entrance. White linen, guest book, a woman with a clipboard and a smile that looked professionally installed. Mid-50s, pearls, the kind of coordinator who's seen it all and judges everyone. She looked up as we approached, pen ready. Names, please. Felicity Pierce, my wife said, signing the book with that looping handwriting of hers. The woman glanced at me, eyebrows raised in polite question. And who's this? I waited for Felicity to introduce me. Husband, partner, Kenneth, anything. Instead, she smiled that little party smile, the one you give strangers when you want to keep things light, and said, "Oh, he's just a friend. Just a friend." The words landed between us like a stone dropped in still water. I felt something shift in my chest, something cold and final. I looked at her, waiting for the correction, the laugh, the "I'm kidding, honey." But she'd already turned back to the woman, pointing at something on the seating chart. I didn't yell, didn't make a scene. I just smiled, slow and deliberate, and said loud enough for everyone within 10 feet to hear, "Actually, I'm just an ex." Then I turned and walked away. I heard her voice behind me, sharp and sudden. "Ken, wait." I didn't wait. I walked past the rows of white chairs, past the string quartet warming up, past the bar where they were setting out champagne flutes. My shoes crunched on the gravel path, steady and even, and I didn't look back once. The parking lot felt like a football field, stretched out and endless. But I made it to my truck, the F-150 I'd driven separately because Felicity said we might need 2 cars for errands later in the weekend. Good thing I had it. I climbed in, started the engine, and pulled out onto the county road. My hands were steady on the wheel. My breathing was normal. I felt calm in a way that probably should have scared me, but didn't. It was the calm of a man who just watched the last piece of a puzzle fall into place and finally understood the whole picture. For minutes after I left, my phone started buzzing. Text after text. Felicity, her mom, her aunt, someone named Pam, I didn't even know. I glanced at the screen at a red light. "Ken, please come back. It was a mistake. What's going on?" "Felicity's crying. This is embarrassing. Fix this." I turned the phone off and kept driving. What I didn't know, what I wouldn't find out until later that night, was that those 4 minutes had been enough. Enough for her mother to pull her aside and demand an explanation. Enough for guests to start whispering. Enough for someone to pull out their phone and realize the whole exchange had been caught on video, right there in the background of the videographer's opening shots. For minutes for the dominoes to start falling. And I was already halfway home. I made it home by 6:30. The house in Mommy felt different when I walked in, bigger somehow, emptier. I dropped my keys on the counter, loosened my tie, and poured myself 2 fingers of bourbon. Sat on the couch in my suit, staring at nothing. My phone was still off. I wasn't ready for the flood yet. Around 7, I powered it back on. 43 missed calls, 62 text messages, 3 voicemails. I scrolled through them without opening any, watching the names blur together. Felicity dominated the list, but there were others too. People I barely knew, suddenly invested in my personal life. I was about to turn it off again when a new message came through. Not Felicity, not her family. Jake, my son, Dad, you need to call me. It's important. I stared at those words for a long moment. Jake and I talked regularly, but he never texted like this. Never urgent, never cryptic. I hit dial. He picked up on the first ring. Dad, hey buddy, what's going on? There was a pause, and I heard him moving, a door closing. When he spoke again, his voice was lower, careful. I need to tell you something. About Felicity. My chest tightened. I'm listening. Another pause. Then, quieter still, I recorded something. At the wedding. Before you left. I sat forward. What do you mean recorded? Jake exhaled, and I could picture him in his room in Columbus, trying to figure out how to say this. I wasn't invited to the wedding, right? But I was in Sandusky anyway, at Tyler's house for the weekend. Tyler's mom is friends with Felicity's cousin, so we ended up at the venue helping set up chairs and stuff. Okay, I said slowly. I saw you and Felicity arrive. I was gonna come say hi, but then I saw her talking to some guy near the side entrance. Before the ceremony, before you even got to the reception table, my pulse kicked up. What guy? I don't know his name. Tall, maybe 40, wearing a gray suit. They were standing close, Dad. Real close. And she was laughing, touching his arm, that whole thing. He paused. So I pulled out my phone and started recording. Just in case. In case of what? In case you needed to know. His voice was steady now, sure. I recorded for maybe 3 minutes. She kissed him, Dad. Right there behind the hedge wall. Not a peck. A real kiss. Then they talked for a bit. And he said something like, see you at the reception. And she laughed and said, act natural. Okay. I couldn't speak. The bourbon glass was cold in my hand. Jay kept going. I didn't know what to do with it. I almost deleted it. But then Tyler's mom told us what happened at the reception table, how you walked out and everyone's freaking out. And I thought maybe you should see this. Send it to me. I said, you sure? Send it. 30 seconds later, my phone buzzed. I opened the video. There she was, my wife, in that dress I'd watched her zip up that morning, leaning into a man I'd never seen before. Their voices were faint but clear enough. The kiss lasted 4 seconds. When they pulled apart, she smoothed his lapel, said something I couldn't hear, and they both laughed. I watched it twice. Then I saved it to 3 different places. Dad, Jake's voice pulled me back. You okay? Yeah, I said, though I wasn't sure that was true. Thank you for telling me. What are you gonna do? I looked around the living room. The throw pillows Felicity had picked out. The coffee table I'd assembled. The life we'd built on assumptions and broken promises. I'm gonna fix this, I said. Legally. Sunday morning, I drove to Columbus. Caroline's law office sat in a restored brownstone near German Village, the kind of neighborhood where people paid extra for history. I'd been there exactly twice before, both times for paperwork related to Jake's custody arrangement. Walking through that door again felt strange, like stepping backward and forward at the same time. She was waiting in her office, blinds half drawn against the morning sun, coffee already going cold on her desk. Caroline looked the same as she had 3 years ago when we'd signed her divorce papers. Sharp eyes, no-nonsense haircut, the kind of woman who didn't waste time on pleasantries when there was work to do. Ken, she gestured to the chair across from her. Sit. Tell me everything. I did. The wedding, the introduction, the video Jake had sent me. I pulled out my phone and showed her the recording. Watching her face stay perfectly neutral as Felicity kissed a stranger behind hedge wall. When it finished, Caroline leaned back in her chair and folded her arms. You're sure you want to do this? Once we start, there's no going back to normal. Normal's already gone, I said. I want to protect what's mine. She nodded slowly. Okay, first question. What assets are we talking about? I made a list the night before, couldn't sleep, so I'd written everything down on a legal pad at 2 in the morning. The house in Mommy, paid off, worth about $320,000. The lake property near Put-in Bay, inherited from my uncle 4 years ago, currently valued around $475,000. My profit-sharing account from the plant, sitting at just over $200,000. And there's something else. Caroline raised an eyebrow. Go on. I've been moving money. Started about 18 months ago, after Felicity kept pushing to refinance the house. and put both our names on the deed. Something fell off about how eager she was, so I opened an offshore account. Cayman Islands. Been transferring small amounts every month. Nothing big enough to trigger alerts. It's at about $190,000 now. Smart. Caroline made note. Anything in her name? Her Etsy business. I loaned her $50,000 to start 3 years ago. No paperwork, just a handshake. She's been saying she'll pay me back, but it never happens. We'll get that back. With interest. Caroline tapped her pen against the desk. What about the house? Is her name on the deed? No. I bought it before we got married. She's been living there, but legally, it's mine. Good. The lake property. Same. Inherited property. Never added her name. I wasn't trying to be secretive, just never saw the need. Caroline smiled, thin and professional. You just made my job significantly easier. Here's what we're going to do. Tomorrow morning, I'm filing paperwork to establish a trust. Tilden Elm Holdings, LLC. Everything you own goes into it. The house, the lake, the profit sharing, all of it. You'll be the sole beneficiary and controller. She won't have legal claim to any of it. How fast can we do this? If we move now, 72 hours. But Ken, you need to understand something. Once she finds out, and she will find out, this is going to get ugly. She'll fight. She'll lawyer up. She might try to claim common law interest or financial contribution. Let her try. I kept my voice level. I've got records of every deposit, every payment, every transaction. She contributed nothing to those properties except living in them. Caroline studied me for a moment, and I saw something shift in her expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition that I wasn't the same man who'd sat in this office 3 years ago, defeated and exhausted by divorce. All right, she said. Let's get to work. We spent the next 4 hours going through documents, bank statements, property records, building a case that was less about attacking Felicity and more about protecting what I'd built. By the time I left her office, the sun was high and harsh, and I had a folder full of papers that would change everything. My phone had been buzzing all morning. I finally looked at it in the parking lot. 23 new messages, most from Felicity, increasingly desperate. We need to talk. This is ridiculous, Ken. You're overreacting to a mistake. I love you. Please come home. I deleted them all without responding, started my truck, and headed back to Toledo. There was nothing left to say to her. The lawyers would do the talking now. Monday morning, I went to work like nothing had happened. Walked into the plant at 6:30, same as always, checked production schedules, talked to the floor supervisors, kept my head down and my focus sharp. Nobody asked about my weekend. Nobody mentioned the wedding. Either they didn't know, or they were smart enough not to bring it up. Around 10, my phone rang. Felicity. I let go to voicemail. She called again at 10:15, then 10:30. By 11, she'd left 4 messages, each one escalating from confused to angry to something that sounded close to panic. I didn't listen to any of them. At lunch, I drove to First Merit Bank on Monroe Street and asked to speak with Patricia Ellison, the branch manager who'd handled my account for 15 years. She knew me, trusted me, and more importantly, she understood discretion. Ken. She shook my hand, led me to her office. What can I do for you? I need to pull records on a transaction from 3 years ago. A cashier's check I wrote to Felicity Hammond, now Felicity Pierce. $50,000. Patricia nodded, pulled up her computer. Business loan. Personal. Startup capital for her business. She said she'd pay me back within 2 years. Never happened. Do you have documentation of the loan terms? No. It was verbal. Patricia's expression didn't change, but I saw the flicker of concern. That complicates things. Without a written agreement, it's your word against hers. I know, but I need the transaction record anyway. Date, amount, memo line if there was one. I'm building a case. She typed for a moment, then turned her monitor toward me. There it was. September 12th, 3 years ago. Cashier's check number 7834. $50,000. Made out to Felicity Hammond. Memo line, business startup loan. I wrote that. I said, pointing to the memo. That's my handwriting on the original request form, right? It is. Patricia printed 2 copies, handed them to me. Ken, if you're going through separation, you need to freeze any joint accounts immediately. We don't have joint accounts. I never set them up. She looked relieved. Good. That's going to save you a lot of headaches. But you should know, if she has access to any shared credit cards or lines of credit tied to your name, she could run them up out of spite. I hadn't thought of that. What do I do? Cancel them. Today. Before she thinks of it. I made calls from her office. 3 credit cards. All in my name, but with Felicity listed as an authorized user. I canceled her access on all of them, effective immediately. The representatives asked if I wanted to close the accounts entirely. I said yes. By the time I left the bank, Felicity had called 6 more times. I drove back to the plant, parked in my usual spot, and sat there for a minute, staring at my phone. Then I opened her last text message. "What did you do, Ken? The credit cards aren't working." I typed one sentence and hit send. "Talk to your lawyer." Then I blocked her number. That evening, Caroline called. "The trust paperwork's filed. As of 4 p.m. today, everything's locked down. The house, the lake, all of it. She can't touch any of it." How long before she finds out? She probably already knows something's wrong. The credit cards would have tipped her off. But official notification? She'll get a letter from my office by Wednesday. Good. Ken, one more thing. That $50,000 you loaned her. I did some digging. Her Etsy business is registered as an LLC, and according to her tax filings, she's been reporting income, but not declaring where the startup capital came from. That's a problem. What kind of problem? The kind the IRS doesn't like. If she took $50,000 and didn't report it as a loan or a gift, she's been underreporting her tax liability for 3 years. I can file a whistleblower report if you want. It won't get your money back directly, but it'll put pressure on her to settle. I thought about that. The image of Felicity kissing that man behind the hedge, the casual way she'd erase me at the reception table, the $50,000 I'd given her in good faith. Do it, I said. Wednesday evening, I was in the kitchen reheating leftover Chinese food when my phone rang. Unknown number, Toledo, area code. I almost didn't answer, figured it was another one of Felicity's attempts to get through, but something made me pick up. "Hello." "Ken." A small voice, tentative. "It's Emma, Felicity's daughter, 11 years old, sweet kid who loves science projects and asked me to help with her math homework every Tuesday." My chest tightened. "Hey, Emma, you okay? I'm at my friend Bethany's house." She paused, and I heard voices in the background, someone telling her to hurry up. "I needed to tell you something. About my mom." I set down my fork, moved to the living room. "What about her?" "She's been seeing someone. A man named Rick. He came to our house a bunch of times when you weren't there. Like after school sometimes, or on Saturdays when you were at the plant doing inventory." "Rick, not the man from Jake's video, but another name entirely." My jaw clenched. "How long has this been going on?" "I don't know. Maybe 6 months. Connor knows too. He thinks it's cool because Rick has a motorcycle and takes him for rides." Her voice dropped even lower. "But I don't like him, Ken. He's mean to Mom sometimes. I heard them arguing last week about money." "What did they say?" "Rick said Mom owed him something. She said she was working on it. Then he said something about our deal, and she got really quiet." "Our deal?" I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Emma, where's your mom right now?" "She's in her room, crying. She's been crying since yesterday, when some lady came to the door with papers. Connor said it's because you're divorcing her, but I don't know if that's true. The trust documents. Caroline had sent a courier to deliver them personally." "Listen to me," I said carefully. "I need you to know something. What's happening between your mom and me, that's grown-up stuff. It's not your fault, and it's not about you or Connor. You understand? Are you leaving us?" Her voice broke slightly, and it gutted me. "I'm not leaving you, Emma. Your mom and I have problems we can't fix, but that doesn't mean I don't care about you. You can still call me if you need help with homework. Okay." "Okay." She sniffled. "Ken, there's something else. Last week, I heard Mom on the phone with someone. She was in the garage, but I could hear her through the window. She was talking about the lake house. She said something like, once we sell it, we can split the money and get out. The lake house. The property worth nearly $500,000 that Felicity had zero legal claim to, but apparently thought she could sell anyway." "Did she say who she was talking to?" "No, but it sounded like the same guy. Rick, I think." I closed my eyes, pieced it together. Felicity had been planning this. The affair, the sale of property that wasn't hers, some scheme with a man I'd never met. The wedding introduction wasn't a mistake or a slip of the tongue. It was part of something bigger. "Emma, you did the right thing calling me." "Thank you. Are you mad at me?" "Not even a little bit. You're a good kid." After we hung up, I immediately called Caroline. She answered on the second ring, sounding tired. It was almost 9 p.m. "Ken, what's wrong?" "We got a problem. Felicity's been planning to sell the lake house. She's got a boyfriend, a guy named Rick, and they've been discussing splitting the money." Caroline was quiet for a moment. "That's attempted fraud. If she tried to forge your signature or sell property she doesn't own, that's criminal. What do I do?" "First, I'm calling the county recorder's office first thing tomorrow morning. We're putting a lien on that property, so it can't be sold without your explicit written consent. Second, I'm adding this to our documentation. If she's conspiring to commit fraud, that strengthens our case significantly." "There's more," I said. "According to Emma, this has been going on for at least 6 months. And there's another man besides the one from the wedding video. This isn't just an affair. It's a pattern. Even better for us," Caroline said grimly. Worse for her. Give me everything you can. Names, dates, details. I want to bury her so deep she won't see daylight for years. I should have felt bad about that. About destroying the woman I'd married. The mother of 2 kids I'd grown to care about. But all I felt was cold, focused determination. She tried to steal from me. Now she'd learn what it cost. Thursday afternoon, I got home from work to find a pickup truck in my driveway. Ohio plates, rusted around the wheel wells, the kind of truck that had seen 30 years of honest labor. I didn't recognize it until the driver's side door opened and Robert Hammond climbed out. Felicity's father, 73 years old, retired electrician, the kind of man who fixed things with his hands and didn't waste words. I met him maybe 10 times in 6 years, mostly at holidays. He'd always been polite but distant, like he was reserving judgment. "Robert," I said, walking up the driveway. "What brings you here? We need to talk." His voice was rough, tired. "You got a few minutes?" I unlocked the front door, let him in. He stood in the entryway, looking around the house like he was cataloging every detail, then followed me to the kitchen. I offered coffee. He shook his head. "I'll stand, thanks." He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket, set it on the counter between us. "This came to my house yesterday, from some law office in Columbus." I recognized Caroline's letterhead before he even opened it. "Notice of lien," Robert said flatly, "on a property at 4737 Lakeview Road, Put-in Bay. Filed by you, through your attorney, preventing any sale or transfer without your written consent." "That's right." He looked at me hard. "That's my daughter's house too." "No, sir, it's not. That property was inherited from my uncle 4 years ago. Felicity's name has never been on the deed. She has no legal claim to it." Robert's jaw worked. "She told me you two bought it together. Said you were planning to retire there someday." She lied. The words hung in the air between us. Robert stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in his face. Not anger, but something heavier. Disappointment, maybe, or recognition. "There's more," he said quietly. "She came to me 3 weeks ago. Asked me to co-sign a loan. $50,000. Said you two were having cash flow problems with the business, needed bridge financing. I signed the papers because she's my daughter and I trust her." My blood went cold. What loan? What business? Her Etsy thing. She said it was growing, needed new equipment, more inventory. The bank approved it based on my credit and my house as collateral. He pulled another paper from the envelope. "This is the loan agreement. Due date's in 18 months. If it's not paid, they take my house." I took the paper, scanned it. First National Bank. $50,000. Robert Hammond listed as primary borrower. Felicity Pierce as secondary. The collateral was Robert's house in Oregon, a small ranch-style place he'd paid off 20 years ago. "Did she tell you what the money was for? Specifically?" "New embroidery machines. Marketing. Business expansion." Robert's voice was flat. "But that's not what it was for, is it?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "But I can find out." I pulled out my phone, called Caroline. Put on speaker so Robert could hear. "Ken," she answered. "I need you to pull records on a business loan taken out by Felicity Pierce 3 weeks ago. First National Bank, $50,000. Her father co-signed. His house is collateral." Caroline was quiet for a beat. "Give me an hour." While we waited, Robert sat at my kitchen table, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. "She's my only daughter," he said after a while. "Her mother died when Felicity was 16. I raised her alone, worked double shifts to put her through community college. I thought I did right by her. This isn't your fault, isn't it?" He looked at me. Maybe I let her get away with too much. Made excuses when she messed up. Her first marriage, the way that ended, I blamed the guy. Told myself Felicity deserved better. Now I'm wondering if I saw what I wanted to see. My phone rang. "Caroline, you're not going to like this," she said. "The loan was approved 2 weeks ago. The money was disbursed last Thursday." I pulled her business account records, public filings. None of that money went into her business. "It's gone." "Gone where?" "Withdrawn in cash. 10,000 on Friday, another 10 on Monday, the rest yesterday. All from different ATMs around Toledo and Sandusky." Robert's face went gray. "There's more," Caroline continued. "I did some checking. Rick Dalton, 42, lives in Perrysburg. He's got a history. Fraud charges in Michigan 5 years ago. Settled out of court. Currently unemployed. And Ken, he's been posting on social media about a big score coming soon. Posted a picture yesterday of a motorcycle he just bought. Brand new Harley. $15,000. I looked at Robert. His hand was shaking. "She gave him my money," he said quietly. "My house. She gave it to some guy on a motorcycle. We're getting it back," I said. "All of it." Caroline's voice came through the speaker, hard and certain. "I'm filing fraud charges tomorrow. Criminal and civil. Robert, you'll need to file a police report as well. Identity theft, fraudulent misrepresentation, the works. Robert stood slowly, looking around my kitchen one more time. Then he looked at me. I'll testify against her. Whatever you need. She doesn't get to destroy people and walk away. After he left, I stood in the driveway watching his taillights disappear down the street, and I felt something I hadn't felt since Saturday at that vineyard. Not anger, not betrayal, just cold, absolute certainty that Felicity had finally pushed too far, and the walls were closing in. The video hit Reddit on Friday morning. I didn't see it until my plant supervisor, Mike, knocked on my office door around 10 with his phone in his hand and an expression I couldn't quite read. Boss, you need to see this. He set the phone on my desk, already playing. It was the wedding. Crystal clear footage from the videographer's opening shots. There I was in my navy suit, standing next to Felicity at that reception table. The audio was perfect. Too perfect. And who's this? The coordinator asked. Felicity's voice, light and dismissive. Oh, he's just a friend. Then my response, calm as a winter lake. Actually, I'm just an ex. The video cut to my back as I walked away, and someone off camera gasped. Then it ended. The comment section was a war zone. 3,000 upvotes in 4 hours. Awards stacked up like poker chips. Savage exit of the year. Read the top comment with 800 upvotes. Below that, you can see the moment she realizes she fumbled the bag. Another. My man didn't yell, didn't argue, just walked. That's power. Mike cleared his throat. It's got 6 million views, Ken. And it's spreading. I watched it again. Something about seeing it from the outside, from the world's perspective, made it real in a way it hadn't been before. This wasn't just my private humiliation. It was public record now. Who posted it? I asked. Some account called Wedding Fails. They aggregated it from the videographer's Instagram story. It's on Twitter too. TikTok. Everywhere. My phone started buzzing. Text from my brother in Michigan. Another from a cousin I hadn't talked to in years. 3 former colleagues. Everyone wanted to know if that was really me. I turned off my phone and looked at Mike. Does everyone here know? Probably. But nobody's going to say anything to your face. We're not idiots. That evening, Caroline called. The video's actually helping us. Public sentiment is overwhelmingly on your side. If this goes to court, and it might, that matters. Jury selection, settlement negotiations, all of it. Felicity looks bad, and she knows it. Has she contacted you? Her lawyer called an hour ago. They want to negotiate. Tell them no. Caroline paused. Ken, they're offering to walk away clean. No claims, no demands. She just wants out. And Robert's house, the $50,000 she stole from him, the money she owes me, she walks away from all that too. That's separate. Criminal charges are already filed. Then there's nothing to negotiate. She burned this bridge. Let her swim. Saturday morning, Felicity showed up at the house. I saw her car pull into the driveway through the kitchen window, watch her sit there for a full minute before getting out. She looked smaller than I remembered, worn down in a way that should have made me feel something. It didn't. I opened the door before she could knock. Ken, please. We need to talk. Her voice was rough, like she'd been crying for days. No, we don't. Your lawyer can talk to mine. I made a mistake at the wedding. I panicked. The coordinator put me on the spot, and I said the wrong thing. You didn't make a mistake, Felicity. You told the truth. I was just a friend to you. Convenient. Useful. But not worth claiming. She stepped closer. That's not fair. I loved you. I still love you. You love my house. My money. My stability. You didn't love me. I kept my voice level, factual. And even if you did, it doesn't matter anymore. You stole from your own father. You've been planning with Rick to sell property that isn't yours. You took $50,000 from me 3 years ago and never paid it back. Her face went pale. How did you? I know everything, Felicity. The affair. The loan. The scheme with Rick. All of it. Rick's nothing. He's just someone I talked to a few times. It didn't mean anything. Then why did you give him $15,000 of your father's money to buy a motorcycle? She actually stumbled back a step. I didn't. Bank records don't lie. Neither do ATM cameras. Neither does your father, who's filing charges against you on Monday. Felicity's composure shattered. You turned my own father against me. I didn't have to. You did that yourself when you put his house at risk for some guy on a bike. She started crying then, real tears streaming down her face. Please, Ken. I'll fix this. I'll pay everyone back. Just don't let them prosecute me. That's not my decision anymore. You made this bed. Now lie in it. I stepped back and closed the door. Stood there listening to her sob on the other side, waiting for guilt to kick in. It never came. 3 months later, I sat in a Lucas County courtroom watching Felicity's attorney try to salvage what was left of her case. It wasn't going well. Caroline had built something airtight. Bank records showing the $50,000 I'd loaned Felicity, complete with my handwritten memo. Jake's video of her kissing a stranger at the wedding. Emma's testimony about Rick Dalton and the conversations about selling the lake house. Robert's fraud charges and documentation of the loan she'd taken in his name. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Patricia Kendrick, had the kind of face that had seen every lie the legal system could produce. She wasn't impressed. "Ms. Pierce," Judge Kendrick said, looking over her reading glasses, "you're asking this court to grant you a share of property you never legally owned, based on what you claim was an implied agreement of partnership. Is that correct?" Felicity's attorney, a young guy named Phillips who looked fresh out of law school, stood up. "Yes, Your Honor. My client contributed to the household, raised children, supported Mr. Pierce's career." "Did she contribute financially to the purchase of the house in Maumee?" Phillips hesitated. "Not directly, but did she contribute to the inheritance of the lake property?" "No, Your Honor, but the marital partnership was 4 years long, during which time Mr. Pierce maintained separate ownership of all major assets, established a legal trust, and has documentation showing loans totaling $50,000 that were never repaid." Judge Kendrick set down the papers. "I'm not seeing a partnership here, Counselor. I'm seeing someone who lived in someone else's house and now wants half of everything." Felicity gripped the table edge, knuckles white. The judge continued. "Furthermore, the criminal charges filed by Mr. Robert Hammond regarding fraud and misappropriation of funds paint a concerning picture of your client's financial ethics. While that's a separate case, it certainly informs this court's view of her credibility." Phillips tried one more time. "Your Honor, my client made a mistake at a family wedding. One poorly chosen phrase shouldn't destroy her financial future. This isn't about a phrase, Counselor. It's about a pattern of behavior. The evidence shows deliberate deception, financial manipulation, and in Mr. Hammond's case, possible elder abuse." Judge Kendrick looked directly at Felicity. "Ms. Pierce, I'm ruling in favor of the defendant. You have no claim to the house, the lake property, or Mr. Pierce's financial assets. Furthermore, I'm ordering you to repay the $50,000 loan within 18 months, with interest calculated at 6% annually. Failure to comply will result in wage garnishment." Felicity's face crumpled. Phillips put a hand on her shoulder, started to say something, but she shook him off and stood up. "This isn't fair," she said, voice shaking. "I gave him 6 years of my life." Judge Kendrick's expression didn't change. "And he gave you a home, financial support, and trust you betrayed. We're done here." Outside the courthouse, Caroline walked beside me to the parking lot. "That was about as clean as it gets. She's got nothing, Ken. The criminal case with her father is still pending, but that's not your problem anymore. What about the $50,000 judgment? She'll probably file for bankruptcy. Even if she does, the fraud aspect might make it non-dischargeable. Either way, you've got the judgment on record." Caroline stopped at her car. "How do you feel?" "I thought about that. Relieved. It's finally over." "Not quite. There's one more thing." She pulled a folder from her briefcase. "Jake's been talking to his mother. About custody." My heart kicked up. "What about it?" "He wants to live with you. Full-time. She already talked to me about it. She thinks it's best for him, given everything that's happened. Says you've proven you're stable, responsible, someone he can count on." I took the folder, opened it. Custody modification papers, already half filled out. "She's serious?" I asked. "Dead serious. Sign these, and Jake moves in next month." 14 months after that wedding, I stood in my kitchen making breakfast while Jake sat at the counter doing calculus homework. He'd moved in last spring, and the house felt different now. Full. "Right. Dad, you see my physics textbook," he called from the living room. "Check your backpack. You left it by the couch." He appeared a moment later, book in hand. "Found it. Thanks." Emma came down the stairs, backpack over her shoulder. She'd been staying with me every other weekend since the custody arrangement got finalized. Connor had chosen to stay with Felicity full-time, and I didn't push it. But Emma had made her choice clear. "Morning, Ken," she said, grabbing a waffle from the toaster. "Morning, kiddo. Sleep okay?" "Yeah. Can you still help me with my science project later?" "Absolutely. We'll work on it after lunch." My phone buzzed. Text from Caroline Whitmore. "Coffee this week? Want to discuss something?" I've been having coffee with Caroline more often lately. Started as legal consultations about Jake's custody, but somewhere along the way, it had become something else. Something that felt suspiciously like dating, though neither of us had said the word out loud. "Thursday work." I typed back. "Perfect. 10 a.m. That place near my office." Jake looked up from his homework, grinned. "That Caroline. Mind your business." "You're smiling at your phone, Dad." "That's definitely Caroline." He went back to his equations, still grinning. "I like her. She's smart. And she actually beat you at chess last week. She got lucky. 3 times in a row isn't luck. Emma laughed, and I realized this. Right here was what I've been fighting for. Not the house or the money or the legal victories. This. A normal Saturday morning with kids who felt safe enough to tease me. A future that didn't involve looking over my shoulder waiting for the next betrayal. The lake house had sold 2 months ago. $490,000. I put half in trust funds for Jake and Emma. Used the rest to pay off the last of my plant's expansion costs. The mommy house was paid off. Mine free and clear. The offshore account sat untouched. A reminder that sometimes protecting yourself isn't paranoia, it's wisdom. I'd heard through mutual acquaintances that Felicity was working retail now, living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Oregon with Connor. Robert had gotten a judgment against her in the fraud case. She'd filed for bankruptcy, but the judge had ruled the debt non-dischargeable due to fraud. She'd be paying it back for years. I should have felt satisfaction about that. Maybe even vindication. But mostly I just felt nothing. She was a chapter that had closed, and I'd moved on to better things. Jake closed his textbook. Dad, I've been thinking. Maybe this summer, we could drive up to Mackinac Island. Just the 3 of us. Make it a thing. The 3 of us. You, me, and Emma. If that's okay. I looked at Emma. She nodded enthusiastically. Yeah, I said. Let's make it a thing. That afternoon, Caroline came by to pick up some documents Jake needed for school. She stayed for coffee, then dinner. Then we sat on the porch watching the sun go down while the kids did homework inside. You're different than you were a year ago, she said quietly. Lighter somehow. I got rid of dead weight. She smiled. Good metaphor. It's the truth. I spent 6 years carrying someone who was planning to drop me the whole time. Now I'm not. Feels good. Caroline reached over, took my hand. For the record, I'm glad Jake wanted to live with you. Not just because it's good for him, though it is, but because it means I get to see more of you. I squeezed her hand. That a professional opinion? Counselor? Completely personal. We sat there as the sky turned purple and gold, and I thought about how far I come from that vineyard reception table. From a man who'd smiled and said, just an ex, and walked away not knowing what came next. I knew now. It was this. Second chances. Better choices. A life built on honesty instead of assumptions.